even among extreme skiers, Greg Hill is a phenomenon. He spent most of his life climbing and skiing at absurdly high altitudes, up where the air is thin and the risk of injury is never far away. For Greg, this was joy in its purest form. That is, until he came upon a scene he'll never forget. A snowfield of death in the mountains of Nepal caused by a powerful avalanche. And tonight, he tells the story of this slide, the devastation, and the rescue to our Jill Kropp.
These are the moments Greg Hill lives for. Climbing to the top of the world and then coming down slopes no one has ever skied before. It's a passion that drove him to extreme lengths, like setting a record for vertical ascents.
In 1999, I was hiking up a mountain and I did a big day, and it was a 5,000-foot day, and I started doing math, and I was like, wow, if you did just over 5,000 feet every day, you'd do 2 million feet.
It took a long time and a lot of training, but finally, in 2010, he made it. 2 million vertical feet in the space of 1 year. That's nearly 400 miles of mountain climbed.
Yeah, there she is. Whoa, I guess I am gonna get emotional. Holy shit. You're a nutbag. You're crazy. Yeah. Holy shit, 1 year.
But at these altitudes, it's not all celebration. There are risks at every turn. You need a clear mind, a fit body, and absolute focus.
There's all sorts of different levels of things you have to consider out there, but most of the time, obviously, avalanche is your biggest hazard.
Well, describe an avalanche for someone who's never heard one or seen one or been in one.
An avalanche is very similar to a wave on a beach, except it starts at the top of the mountain, and it's just this big vertical wall of snow that just kind of sweeps down the mountain.
With a lot of force.
With a lot of force. Something you never want to be below or above.
His ability to assess risk probably saved Greg's life on a recent visit to Nepal. He was with a team of German climbers on Manaslu, the world's 8th highest peak. And what he saw disturbed what he calls his mountain sense.
This is the most busy mountain I've ever been on. I mean, you can see from one of my pictures that there's a lineup of humans going up the fixed ropes, and yeah, we're very busy.
300 climbers, 200 Sherpa guides, some of them setting up camp in a bowl-like depression that seemed to Greg dangerously exposed.
No, I would never camp at Camp 3, especially that spot.
You know, I think even a rookie could see that that could be in the direct line of an avalanche.
Exactly, there's definitely a lot of questions with that camp spot. I was surprised when I got up that day and saw 14 tents camped there.
Greg and the German team found a safer spot to put up tents.
Well, we were just going to our Camp 2, which was positioned on this rise on a bit of an ice bulge, and kind of as safely as I could find on the mountain. One of the rules is definitely to sleep in the safest spot you can find.
But Greg says there's another code in mountaineering. When it comes to risk, mind your own business.
Everybody has their own different risk tolerances in the mountains, and they've got their objectives, and they're willing to take this much risk, and that's their decision. We're not going to go over there and kind of force our views on them.
On September 23rd at 4:45 a.m., Greg woke up, and he knew there was trouble.
Just right off the bat, the winds, and just kind of start flapping our tent and really flapping our tent, and just like, oh, that's really odd. And we're like, I think that was an avalanche that just went by. And we could hear voices up the slope and it's peeking out. We could see headlamps and desperate voices kind of shouting for each other, and we knew that something had just happened. Once it got clearer and we started hiking up, we could see that it was a huge event. Many people caught in it, and then it was the entire tents, 14 tents that I'd seen the night before were gone somewhere in the debris.
What's your very first thought?
Our first thought was, well, we should go save them. We saw a discarded down boot, which meant that somebody's tent had been blasted, and we knew that then, yeah, there was no tents left up at Camp 3, that everything had been swept down. So all of a sudden there's another discarded boot, there's jackets, there's sleeping bags, and then we stumbled upon the first group of French people that were sitting there, and you could see they're obviously all shell-shocked because it's freezing cold at 5 a.m. So we basically just gave them some hot drinks and stuff and started focusing on those that were actually in need of our direct assistance.
And you're not a doctor.
No, I'm a first aid attendant. I've been a first aid attendant for 16 years, but I've only dealt with sprained wrists and splinters. I've never actually dealt with anything real, and this was the first time that it was real.
What was the range of injuries?
The one guy, Ralph, that we started digging out right away, he was kind of buried up to here with his tent all wrapped around him, and he had some broken ribs and a kind of a dislocated arm that was buried in the snow.
Greg's most vivid memory, though, is of a French woman named Catherine.
She actually had a ton of internal injuries and was really not with us, but we wrapped her and got her on a sleeping mat and all sorts of sleeping bags and got oxygen on her, and kind of seemed like she'd be able to stay with us, but as the length of the rescue happened, she just faded away, and there's nothing we could really do for her.
She wasn't the only one to die, though.
No, there was many others that were completely buried and suffocated in their sleeping bags and in their tents, buried under feet of snow.
It's then that Greg was overcome by emotion. He turned the camera on himself.
I didn't know any of them, but it's so sad. They all come out here trusting their Sherpas and everything, and they camp in this huge avalanche path, and how many died today? I don't know, 10. God.
Greg then did something he'd never done before. He left a mountain unconquered.
My time there was done, and that I wouldn't have any desire to climb it at this period of my life, and that I was just going to grab everything and exit stage left and get back to what's important to me.
Which is?
Family.
Back home to Revelstoke, BC.
Well, maybe we'll see you at Kawakubos later.
Home and his 2 kids and wife, Tracy. The everyday things that help blunt the bad memories. Tracy says she's not uncomfortable with Greg's lifestyle.
I find that, Greg's a very passionate person about what he loves, and that's who he is, that's who he's always been, and he's happy.
Happy, but in his cluttered workspace, Greg can't seem to get his mind off the human drama he witnessed. His hastily unpacked climbing gear strewn across the floor as he reviews the images from Manaslu with his son Aidan.
Will you still be trying to scale these high mountains?
I'm sure at some point I will try one of those peaks again. It's something that I didn't get to fully experience since I had to deal with this tragedy, but I think it'll take a while.
For the time being, he'll rest and process those experiences in Nepal. But the mountains and the memories they hold are on Greg Hill's horizon every day.